If you're the kind of person who can't take a punch in the jaw and get up and continue fighting, no matter how bright you are, don't try to start up something on your own. Get a bunch of partners, because nothing can keep you going like a bunch of co-founders and partners. And like I said, it's not for everyone, and it's not some sort of virtue that you have to boast about. I'd be just as proud of what I was doing doing a good job in someone else's company. So don't take just being a startup founder as a virtue in itself. It's not. It's just one of the things we do.
It must have been a magical moment then when you first tried the product and it tasted quite nice.
Very nervous during those times because my hands and my body was shivering, because you never know what happens next. So, but it was pretty awesome. We were able to achieve the taste that is required.
If you want to get into trading, what do you need to do? Then people will say, learn technicals, learn market behavior, etc. I always say that first you learn about you, about your behavior, your style, and match that style with the market and see whether there is any edge which you can create for yourself.
Initially, it was tough to get people to have cocktails and to actually convince them to enjoy the drinks, but it was just about going with your gut. And in fact, one of my famous lines that I used to say to all our guests was that I would offer them a cocktail and I would always say that if you don't like it, give it to me, I can use a drink. And that almost every time worked.
Hello everyone, thank you for downloading the last episode of 2021. And after 5 years of interviewing amazing Indian entrepreneurs, I'm actually thinking about investing in a few Indian startups. So if you are building something exciting and need some seed funding to get your startup off the ground, please contact me. And on with the show. So today you will hear some of the best guests I've spoken to over the past few years. So you will hear from Newslaundry co-founder Abhinandan Sekhri on building an alternative news model. Next up is Siddharth Manvati. He's the co-founder of ClearMeat. He talks about building India's first cell-based meat company. Next up is Vivek Bajaj. He's the co-founder of StockEdge and Elearnmarkets. He talks about building the Bloomberg ecosystem for retail investors in India. And last but not least, Minakshi Singh, the co-founder and CEO of Sidecar and Speakeasy. She talks about building India's best bar and being featured in the coveted Asia 50 best bars in 2020. So sit back and enjoy some of the best moments of the Indian Startup Show, and I wish you all the very best for 2022. Hello, Abhinandan. Thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, man.
Tell me a bit about Newslaundry.
Newslaundry was something that we started back in 2012. Tell you about Newslaundry, I'll have to tell you about the other company that I had started with my business partner Prashant, which was actually a television production company, which both of us started in 1999. We both used to work for a news organization called Newstrack. It was India's first video news show. And back then, because private news was not allowed on the airwaves, it was just the government broadcaster Doordarshan. Newstrack, I was a reporter. He was a producer there. Once the television channel, satellite TV boom started, we had just quit and started our own production house, and we were making non-fiction programming, primarily travel shows. But both of us had a major interest in news, and I was also writing a show called The Great Indian Tamasha, which was actually similar to Spitting Image. It's a British show with these, and but we were kind of seeing what was happening in Indian news, and we thought it was an opportunity to do something digitally in the news space, because both of us were convinced that this is not the model that is going to make news sustainable. And Madhu, who was the founder of India Today, its largest Indian news magazine, she was the one who'd hired me for Newstrack. I used to meet her off and on in Delhi, and all used to say, look at news, what's happening. So the initial idea was just to do a show where we critique the news. We look at what's happening in the news space, that how was news would comment on business, politics, industry, everything, but no one was commenting on news. There was no culture of, the late night shows that you have in the US and in the West. Yeah. But no news channel wanted to actually put a show like that up, because there was this unspoken code of news not commenting on other news platforms. Then we kind of said that, forget a news show, let's just do a full news site. And by then, the digital space was growing. There was Indian internet penetration was still not in the double digit, at least broadband. So then we said, let's just go online and start our own little news commentary, digital platform. So that's how it started. And it was a passion project, because Prashant and I had a fairly successful production house. So the additional costs were not significant. We had an office, we had editing machines, we had cameras, we had the basic infrastructure. And then a year into it did well. People noticed it was something new. Then we kind of spun it off and said, okay, now this is something that has a life of its own. It can be sustainable on its own.
Mm-hmm. Was it tough to walk away from that career then?
Well, yeah, in a sense, I did have to then step down in any executive role in Small Screen, which is the production house. And we had bunch of very successful travel shows at the time. We had Highway on My Plate, which was a very popular travel show. So, but yeah, we had to say that, okay, now, Prashant and Rupak will handle Small Screen, Madhu and I'll handle Newslaundry. We had to separate the companies because we were looking to raise funds for Newslaundry, whereas Small Screen was not a funded company. It was an organic growth. We weren't looking for VCs. And they were two kind of different businesses. So yeah, that's how Newslaundry actually started. It was basically Prashant, me and Madhu, our news kind of, that little bug that we had of having a comment on news sticking in our heads. So we kind of got back to news after a gap of maybe 10, 11 years.
Yeah, sounds exciting. What went wrong in the early days then?
What went wrong? Well, let's see. What could go wrong, right? News is a very high risk venture to set up, especially in a country like India, because the government interference is much, much higher as compared to, let's say, Britain or some of the other liberal democracies in the West. News platforms are a lot more scared of news. On the Press Freedom Index, I don't know whether you saw, we are even lower than Philippines. So in many Asian countries, news is a very high risk venture, especially if you plan to kind of not pull your punches. That was something we understood, and that comes with the territory. So like I said, because it was a passion project, we were willing to take that risk. Secondly, as an economic model, news was becoming less and less sustainable because Indian news platforms depend heavily on government advertising. It's not just private sector advertising. And we had said that we will be an ad-free model. We will be a subscription-only model. And you're talking about at a time in 2012 where even Guardian or New York Times had not quite proved that a reader-supported contribution or subscriber model is possible. The culture of paying for news was not as robust as it is now. So the first few years were hard. Like, will this last? Will it just be something we'll do on the side? But I was extremely convinced of it, that this is how news will evolve. It has to evolve this way. I mean, I'm quite happy of how it grew and how we stuck to our core calling. And now the world over, of course, it happened a lot earlier. It happened in the early 200s to the teens, that between 2012 and 2015, where reader-supported news platforms became more and more sustainable, and that became the norm. New York Times and WAPO have a record number of subscribers. So does The Guardian. It's happening now in India. News platforms that earlier, which came up, and I was told by many people that Indians won't pay for news, don't follow models from Britain or France or Sweden and the US. But I think it has shown that even people will pay for news no matter which country they're in, because it'll always be a smaller percentage, but they exist.
Yeah. Can you share some stats then?
Depending from month to month, there's some drop off, some comeback. We have between 5,000 to 6,000 paying subscribers.
Awesome.
The one thing that determines subscription is not just your product, it's also the technology that makes it easier to make payment.
What are your thoughts on YouTube then? Because you're on YouTube. I mean, do you YouTube advertising then?
No, we have disabled YouTube ads. And often I get asked this by people that, fine, you don't want to take ads because it compromises your journalism, because you have to have a sales team who's going looking for ads. And if you're going to be reporting on, let's say, corporate corruption, you can't possibly going to be the same market for ads. But why we have disabled it is not because you have to have a sales team that is going looking for ads, because that is automated. Clutters the way you're positioning your product. I think for any entrepreneur, when you are doing a consumer facing product, you have to be very clear about how you're positioning it. And sometimes doing something may not compromise the structure, but it will compromise the optics of your product. So not everybody who will watch a Newslaundry YouTube video will say that, oh, these ads that are coming are not actually them going out and getting ads. This is an automated YouTube function. For them, they will see us as someone who does have ads. And that kind of dilutes how you're positioning your product. Until your product is completely positioned in the market for a basic set of values, which in our case is when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. So I say that in every podcast. That is an appeal that goes out on social media, on every audio, video, or even the little posters that we do. We have this slogan: when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Now, when that is your basic USP. That is the basic ethos that you're going to market with. You can't clutter it with a YouTube ad or Google ads and stuff. Then it dilutes the message.
Yeah, definitely.
So we don't. So we've disabled all advertising on our website as well as on YouTube.
Obviously, I consider you as new media. What are your thoughts on the old media then, traditional newspapers with ad-based revenue models? I mean,
this is what I call legacy media. I think the way legacy media has reacted to the new world is very different in case of broadcast and print. And also, I would say that in India, it's very different from how it is, in UK or the US. For one, the over-dependence on advertising in India has been a huge blow to independence of the press in India. Generally, the institutions here are not as robust as they are in, older and more evolved democracies. The possibility of pressure is a lot higher, and that can really mess up your fundamental role in journalism if one gets compromised. And because that was the established way of doing business for so long, even when the digital, world kind of exploded in our faces, there was enough time for these legacy media outfits to kind of reconfigure themselves to the digital space and become less dependent on the kind of sales-led advertising that they have. Like I just mentioned, Guardian started doing that very early in their lives, and there were others as well. New York Times, of course, is the most successful, but there was no reason that Indian news platforms couldn't do it. I think there they missed a trick. Some of them are trying to, pivot to that right now, but I think it's too little, too late. Many are dying, and COVID has kind of spurred that death a little quicker.
Because obviously you do a lot of media analysis. I mean, in India, which of the newspapers are doing it right then, and which ones are doing wrong then?
Well,
which newspaper should I be buying? So I know that it's not fake news.
Well, I would highly recommend the Indian Express. I think it's a very good newspaper. And even the Times of India as a newspaper isn't bad. It's pretty good, although their television channel is abhorrent. But the problem is not that they are giving fake news. The problem with many of them is that they are not giving you all the news that they should because of over dependence on government ads. Like if you look at the Indian newspapers, even the best of Indian newspapers in the last 4 months, when the lockdown was announced because of the pandemic, industry completely stopped advertising. I mean, they were just struggling to survive. Yeah. And the first place they cut their costs is advertising. So for about a month and a half, the only ads you saw in newspapers were government ads. Now, if your newspaper is running solely on government ads, who will have the guts to go against the government? So you end up compromising the quality of stories you do, even if they're not fake news. They're well done stories. They're good reports. They're important reports, but they aren't the most important reports. You aren't doing exactly what journalism should be doing, which is calling out those in power for the most offensive things that they're doing. So that's the problem. That model is flawed. I'm not saying the people are flawed or the professionals are flawed. It's the model that kind of compromises them. But eventually, if you're going to ask me 20 years from now, convergence is going to happen. You will get all your content through that one beam. Right now the cable television and internet are different. Although on many smart TVs, you can access YouTube and Netflix. Eventually, convergence will mean print, video, digital will all just come in to your life through one cable or through one beam, whatever that be. And then it'll be very difficult to tell who is print, who is broadcast, who is digital. And that's when the real fun happens. Then we are competing with the biggest brands on an equal footing, which is why it is very important for the digital ecosystem that net neutrality is not compromised.
True.
And that is key. And that's a battle that's being fought the world over.
Yeah. How do you keep up with the news cycle then? Because I remember the days it was like 7 days news cycle, then it's like 24 hours news cycle, 60-minute news cycle now. News is always breaking.
Well, if you're a news professional like I am, or many people like me are, we're constantly consuming news through the day. In fact, my family often tells me that you really need to just log off. Very stressful. Because even when I'm going on a holiday, I need to check what's on the news. So I have these 2 or 3 websites, and like on Twitter, I follow all the news platforms. Yeah. Or you're on Flipboard or something or the other. The news cycle in US, I guess Trump decides the news cycle. Yeah. He says something outrageous and it goes into the news cycle. Although that is becoming less and less. I think American news platforms have realized the trick that he's been pulling off for the longest time, so they don't fall into the same news cycle based on his outrageous utterances. I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in India, news cycles are being defined and determined too often by the establishment. They will pull off some comment in Parliament when it was in session, or they will introduce some bill, and the entire news ecosystem, at least the legacy media, goes into that frenzy. And meanwhile, 5 other things happen which don't get your attention. But what does get the attention of the news platforms is the noisiest, but not necessarily the most important. And this is a trick I think politicians and political parties around the world have realized are kind of gaming the system, which is why as news professionals, we have to be a lot more vigilant of not falling into that trap.
Yeah, because obviously you mentioned media personalities before, whether they're on the left or the right, they'll just like complain about everything, right? In order to just get clicks.
I think it's become fashionable.
They can make money out of the clicks, and they get to appear on TV shows.
It's become like this wrestling match. That is why the more outrageous you are, the more airtime you get. I mean, that's the problem with broadcast for sure. But complaining about the news and how it's compromised or fake news has also been fed by, prominent political figures around the world for their own convenience. That kind of gives cover to many news platforms online to spread fake news. There have been recorded cases around the world, including this latest one that has been taken off, I think, on Facebook and Twitter, which was pushing this conspiracy theory, that sex racket being run by Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So, I mean, President of the United States, his son's Twitter account was suspended because he was pushing conspiracy theories by that platform for 11 hours. Trump tweets were restricted on that issue. While the digital space provides a really exciting opportunity to news professionals to do something new, it comes with, the other side of the coin of fake news proliferating at a speed that we've never seen before. But I think I'll take that bad with the good, because eventually the net result, I think, would be good.
How do you deal with the trolls then? You must get a lot of grief online. Does it bother you, or does it not bother you?
No, it doesn't. I have absolutely no.
They are used to it now.
Yeah, it just comes with the territory. The kind of hate you get when you put out reports or comments on a politician that others love and you don't. The right wing comes at you like with threats and to your family and stuff. But Twitter hate is Twitter hate, man. It's not significant.
What's been your most popular piece then?
Newslaundry has done a bunch of stuff. I mean, one of my interviews that really went viral was of this, filmmaker he's not a really well-known filmmaker. He was well-known not for his films, but for the political posturing he was doing.
Yeah.
Saying the most ridiculous, bizarre stuff on urban naxalism and all sorts of other ridiculous claims. And he was getting a lot of currency in legacy media as a commentator. So I did an interview with him where he famously said, and I kind of debunked some of the statements he'd made. He was lecturing in colleges. I mean, he got the kind of respectability where his name is Vivek Bajaj. He was going to colleges and speaking complete nonsense. So I did an interview with him where I pointed out to what all he was saying was completely untrue and demonstrably untrue. And he famously said, but facts are not facts. I mean, I was wearing a white kurta. So I said, you said this, but that's not true. You gave this data point on the amount of violence in urban cities, and that's not true, even by government's own records. So he says, see, you can, that is your reality, that's my reality. I said, look, there are some realities which overwhelming evidence is one way. For example, the kurta that I'm wearing is white. That's the overwhelming evidence. Someone may say it's black, but that person won't really be very credible. So there are some facts that can't be disputed. So he says, no, facts are not facts. It depends on, and then that just became this meme. It became this really popular little clip that was shared. That did really well. But some of our ground reports have done really well. We did a bunch. We were doing one on the recent riots in Delhi.
Okay.
We're doing a series of reports. Those reports are doing really well. And those are important reports to do because over 50 people died in the capital of India at a time when Trump was visiting. And the law enforcement agencies have just gone asleep on that. And someone killed those people. And how can that happen in the capital of India and no reports be done? And because legacy media has not picked that story up, we have decided to really focus on that. So that's a project I'm very proud of that our wonderful reporters are doing on a day-to-day basis.
How's that project going then? When do you think it'll be done?
We've already got about 4 stories out. I think it's going to be a series of 15 reports, if not more, because we're not going to let go. So those reports are already up on newslaundry.com. You can check them out. And there'll be more going forward.
Cool. What are you most proud of then during your time at Newslaundry?
Well, I'm most proud of having come so far, 8 years, with a model that we were told when we started will not work. You will have to depend on advertising. I'm proud that we have stuck to our guns. And now many of those who used to tell me it won't work have turned their news platforms into subscription-led news platforms. I'm most proud that we have changed the way news models are looked at, and all new entrepreneurs who are coming into the space are re-looking at what they can do as news entrepreneurs and the kind of commerce and viability that can emerge from this space. So that is something that I'm proud of. But other than Newslaundry, the fact that we are here 8 years later, even if we're not very big, but we are still here, for me is itself something that gives me immense satisfaction.
So what kept me going then in the early days when people were telling you not to do this?
Well, I guess just passion for news. Yeah, it's just something that's addictive. Many people who have been journalists will tell you, although many quit for PR and corporate communication roles, the amount of journalists who stick to journalism, even though it doesn't pay very well, itself is evidence that it's something that's addictive. So many journalists can get really high-paying jobs or at PR company or in other large corporations, but they still stick with news. That's purely because it's just something. It's a passion. You even the few years that I was doing non-fiction programming, although it was travel shows and food shows, and they were great fun, I missed news because I was a reporter first. So I think that's what keeps anyone in the news space going.
Yeah, good. So any advice to our listeners then who want to build their own media company? What should they be focused on?
Know yourself. Being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, and that's fine. This general narrative that especially many of these top business schools and tech schools have going, that you have to start off your own thing, like 4 friends say we'll get together and start up. You don't have to start up anything. There is as much joy and pride in working for an organization as there is in starting up your own thing. That is one. For a startup founder, your skills, what you learn, your ability to make presentations, your ability to identify teams is all secondary. Your primary is what kind of a person are you, your emotional state. There's a very good piece, I think it was in the New York Times, I'm not sure, it's called The Emotional Cost of Entrepreneurship. When the shit hits the fan and when the chips are down, don't underestimate how horrible it can be. So more than your access to capital, access to market, access to technology, and access to ideas, make sure you have access to your emotional canvas and you understand what your emotional space is. If you're the kind of person who can't take a punch in the jaw and get up and continue fighting, no matter how bright you are, don't try to start up something on your own. Get a bunch of partners, because nothing can keep you going like a bunch of co-founders and partners. And like I said, it's not for everyone, and it's not some sort of virtue that you have to boast about. I'd be just as proud of what I was doing a good job in someone else's company. So don't take just being a startup founder as a virtue in itself. It's not. It's just one of the things we do.
Has anyone helped you on your journey? Any mentors?
I completely dismiss this whole self-made man narrative many people put out. While I didn't inherit anything from my folks, they're very middle class. My dad's a retired army officer, my mother's a retired school teacher. But for anyone, to be able to create 2 companies of a certain success, lots of help has come along the way. It could be from friends, relatives, former employers, mentors. Even if they're not mentors, they're just former bosses who helped you out. I just think that you should value the advice of people who have done this before you, because nothing is as valuable as someone who's walked that path and can make sure you don't repeat those mistakes. I mean, I won't start naming people, but I mean, Newslaundry and Small Screen are not just the toil, sweat and tears of the founders. It's also the help of many dozens of people who have helped us along the way.
We must talk Highway on My Plate. One of my favorite TV shows. Can you share some stories?
Oh man, too many memories. Yeah. We're doing a podcast right now. It's called Highway on My Podcast. After lockdown happened, Rocky, Pure, Prashant and I kind of said that since everybody's locked down, let's just start this podcast since we've driven all over India. This was when we were making non-fiction shows. We were doing shows for Discovery, Nat Geo. There's a new channel coming up called NDTV Good Times. It was a Indian lifestyle channel, and they wanted a show on on street side food. It was supposed to be a show basically along the Grand Trunk Road, which took a historical kind of view of this road that was made by Sher Shah Suri centuries ago, and driving down that road. Rocky and Mayur are, old friends of mine. We auditioned some 15, 20 people and none of them worked out. Then I just get a call. I said, look, you guys love traveling. We've known each other. I've run out of options. Why don't you just come to office? Let's just shoot in the park at the back. Let's have some fun and send that to the channel. And let's see if this works, because this is the show they want. So from a show that wasn't necessarily supposed to be so high on the humor bit, because of the personality of the two anchors and our past association and friendship, which went back years, we just had a blast. And then from being just, along the Grand Trunk Road, it became a show that we went all across India. And then we went to Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia. So there's so many stories, man. You just meet people on the roads. And what's unfortunate is I don't think a show that can be done anymore, because now with these super highways that have come up on India, all the roadside eateries have kind of are slowly dying. Not many people go to the state highways, because when you can get to Ahmedabad to Baroda in like 2 hours, why will you take the other highway that goes through Anand and Maharashtra and all that? I mean, we've met wrestlers, we've met magicians, we've met people who were walking like 500 kilometers, like they were crawling to a place of pilgrimage we'd never heard of. We have been in areas that you're told you can't go through that area late at night because there are Naxals there. We have stopped there and sat by the river and looked at a moon. I mean, we've driven to Nagaland and Arunachal, where many Indians in their lifetimes, don't end up going. We've had the good fortune of driving there, not just flying there and driving around. We drove from Delhi to that place. And some of the places that we've seen and been stuck in and experienced, there's a book there, and I'll write it one day.
What was the best food that you had, and what was the best place you visited?
It's so hard to say the best, but I will say that when it comes to food meccas, Amritsar is one. Punjab, it has so many great food places that you can spend a week and you'll still have more places to go to. Bangalore is another city which has a variety of really old food places and some new ones as well. You have Hyderabad, which has some amazing food. Kerala is a very small state, but you guys get. But one of my most memorable meals is actually in Hyderabad. I like spicy food. It had the most delicious, highly spiced non-vegetarian food that I've had. So I highly recommend Hyderabad if you like spicy non-veg Indian food.
Yeah. No, I spent 2 months in Hyderabad, so yeah, I found the food very nice. Be honest though, on the actual show itself, was there any sort of food that you really hated, but you had to say, oh, this is really nice? I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, we never did that.
Okay.
I was not on the anchors, but that is something they were very honest about. When the food was bad, they said it was bad. In fact, there was one place that we went to. It was in Kufri, which is in the hills in the Himalayas in Uttarakhand. And this guy, he was really sweet, and he sang and he had a blast. We had great fun hang out with him. But when he actually served us the food he cooked, it was so bad, it was not even funny. And Rocky and Mayur looked into camera and said, we love this guy. Come here, hang out with him, but don't eat what he cooks. It is inedible. It really was. Other than not being tasty, I remember there was one place we went to in Agra. We enjoyed the meal. It was delicious. We loved it. It was a really small hovel near the railway station. And as we were walking out, we saw his kitchen, and we all looked at each other. We were like, dude, I hope we wake up alive tomorrow, because there were rats visibly running around. All the used cutlery and utensils were lying in this puddle, which might as well have been a gutter. And he was just like washing it there, wiping it and putting it on the table. And we're like, oh, so it tasted great, I must say, but it's good not to see where it came from.
Going back to Newslaundry then, who would you like to interview?
Well, the Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi. I'd really like to speak with him.
What questions would you ask him?
Oh man, there's so many. Just his vision, his ideas, where they come from. There's so many there. I'd like to ask him about specific inconsistencies in his utterances down the years, because he's never been asked those. You see, I would have picked someone else because the Prime Minister of the country is just too obvious a choice. Ordinarily, the Prime Minister of the country would have been interviewed by dozens of other people, so there's nothing really left to ask him. But in this particular case, he hasn't been asked any difficult questions in the last 6 years. Therefore, he becomes the most, interesting person to interview.
How do you think he's done then, out of 10?
Well, you see, governance is a tricky business, because you're looking at economy, you're looking at social fabric, you're looking at, short-term gains, long-term costs, the long-term, gains and short-term costs. So because it's very complex, I wouldn't want to give him a rating across everything. I'd say on economy, he's been average, as good and bad or bad as many others. He's had to deal with some tougher situations. But on the social kind of messaging and the general way that society perceives politics and inclusiveness, I'd give him a 2 or a 1. I think on that he has. A country like India, I think that is more important than economy. A country like India will, amble along. It's like an elephant, man. Even when we had like 2% rate of growth, we're still here, right? I mean, we're still considered one of the most important markets in the world. We're like 1.3 billion people here. I mean, even if we do very little work and not very productive work, it'll still be more than what many others will be able to do together. So in that environment, the more important metric for me would be what was the social outcome of your messaging or your rhetoric or your politics. And on that, in my lifetime, I haven't seen it as bad as it is now.
There's one question I have to ask you. There's a guy on my Twitter timeline, Anab Goswami.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have listeners outside India. He seems pretty controversial.
He is, I'd say, the Tucker Carlson rolled into Raj and add a little bit of, the Ku Klux Klan and add a little bit of, Trump and give him an environment where he gets access and privileges that very few news organizations do. Mm-hmm. He is he's someone who has transformed the news primetime debating format into its lowest kind of common denominator. It's the worst of Big Boss in a studio. That's what he does. Mm-hmm. The kind of things that he says, even Fox would not allow that on that channel. So that's who he is, and he doesn't like us, and he has said so much on one of his primetime shows. We think it's important to call out the kind of hate and bigotry that he pushes, and we do that. I think it's important that people realize this kind of stuff will just do so much damage. It'll take years to undo.
What questions would you ask him then?
Oh man, he'd never appear on we've invited him. We have a thing called the Media Rumble. Yeah. It's one of the largest news conferences in Southeast Asia, actually. So we host that in partnership with Teamwork Arts, the same people who host the Jaipur Literature Festival. We have invited him for talks, interviews. He would never take that. He never talks to his peers because the amount of lies that he kind of spouts will be caught out so easily if he's sitting face to face. He's made claims are demonstrably, false about his past, about the kind of stories he's done. So it would be great fun to corner him on those. Also, the way he conducts interviews with those who are in power, it's almost like this servile, sucking up that he does, and he calls it an interview. One would love to ask him about that. And if he's interviewing someone who is not quite as powerful, he'll go to the extent of calling them terrorists. He'll say what the hell he wants to their face. So I'd like to ask him, how does he prepare for an interview with, a student leader who has no clout and bashing him? And what gives of this servile persona that he kind of internalizes when he's interviewing someone powerful.
Crazy man. Right, look, last 2 questions. Have you got any books or blogs that you want to recommend? Anything that's helped you?
Well, I think economics is a subject that one should really understand, no matter what one does. It serves you in any pursuit. I think a fantastic podcast on economics that really simplifies it is NPR's Planet Money. It's a fairly old podcast. I think it's almost 10 or 15 years old. And I've been listening to it since then. And they started a new one called The Indicator. So those are both from NPR. They're fantastic podcasts. I highly recommend, those they explain complex and not so complex economic phenomena and issues simply and clearly.
Okay, yeah. So last question then, for people who want more information on Newslaundry, what must they do?
Well, you can log on to newslaundry.com. You'll get an idea of the kind of stuff we do, our philosophy, our team, the kind of work we believe in. You will see we have this podcast called The Hafta. It is a weekly podcast. It started off as an exercise in transparency because we believe that, and this is an age-old debate, which I think is settled, that there is no such thing as objectivity in people. All people have prejudices and slants and biases. The idea of the Hafta is that the editorial team, the heads of department, it's a gabfest that we do every week. And in the attempt that people can listen to us and get to know us so they know what our biases are. Yeah. Or you read what we write. Mm-hmm. You know that this guy, this is his bias. So this woman has, has this kind of background. So this is where she's coming from. And from being an exercise in transparency, it became our most popular podcast for just discussions. So if you want to really know what Newslaundry is all about, Hafta is the podcast to listen to.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. Abhinandan, thank you for coming on the show today. Much appreciated. I wish you all the best. Hope you don't get arrested soon.
Thank you. Hope you're right. And thank you for inviting me. And good luck to you too, man.
Cheers, man. Cheers now. Bye. Hello, Dr. Manvati. Thanks for coming back on the show today.
Thank you, Neil. It's awesome and pleasure to be back with you.
Awesome. What's been going on since I last spoke to you this time last year?
Ironically, it has been exactly 1 year since we last spoke, and the journey has been amazing. Last year, when you called me and when we were having a discussion, we were again raising funds that time, and this year again we are raising funds. But the journey has been upslope. And fingers crossed, the product was not there last year. We were still talking about POCs, but now the product is there. So the journey is still expanding.
Awesome stuff. And for people who didn't listen the first time, what was your desire to sort of do this in the first place?
To give a summary to the new audience, my thought would be the desire was to answer the alternative protein emerging concerns with respect to this industry that they were trying to answer. And it has been pretty amazing that we have been positive on our approach, and the confidence within the team has been very uplifting. We have been able to create some products which are chicken-based products as of now, but in the last 1 year the shelf has expanded. We have expanded our R&D on almost different cell types, and not only we are focused. Last year I remember I was telling you we had minced chicken. We have now strategized our approach with respect to chicken keema, and also we have 2 more chicken products on shelf. Hopefully we should be able to give out or put it on shelf soon, waiting for the policies to be in place and parallelly getting the approvals. Apart from that, we are also, I have actually tested a few products personally, and last year the products were not edible, but today they are edible, fully functional. So we are working with authorities for waiting for the policies, and fingers crossed.
It must have been a magical moment then when you first tried the product and it tasted quite nice.
Very nervous during those times because my hands and my body was shivering because you never know what happens next. So, but it was pretty awesome. We were able to achieve the taste that is required because, as you know, I am a pure non-vegetarian by nature. So I try everything out. So there is a specific peculiar taste that I am looking for. And we have been able to magically reach to that. Apart from that, last time the concern was we were looking for something to make it from non-edible to edible. We have achieved it. Also, because of the wide range of products that I'm discussing with you, we have been able to basically solve certain pain points of this industry. There are 2 major pain points. The one is taste and the another is texture. Because our focus is minced chicken, the texture does not become our pain point. But yes, we are focusing on taste and edible, of course. And yes, the journey has been pretty awesome.
What was it taste like then?
It tastes pure chicken. And to give it out through your audience, it has been the right way to make it more friendly, customer friendly would be people out there have been trying plant-based products for the last 1 year. And there has been a lot of hype, not hype exactly, but a lot of expectations on those grounds. Those guys are already trying their best to match with respect to customer feedback. I have been reporting, or we have been getting ground reports from how different industries are working and how this specifically plant-based sector is working and trying to achieve it. We have understood that the taste is the key point, and this is what is actually hindering the whole growth, and where somehow Impossible or other companies have already taken a pace or level up. But everyone is trying to catch up. And with respect to what we are doing, we have already achieved that. And it is pure chicken. Again, the only difference is it is lab grown. But yes, it satisfies the taste buds of non-vegetarians.
Yep, you're still alive as well. That's good.
Yes.
So from a scientific point of view then, how are you evaluating taste? Because obviously everyone's got different taste buds.
To answer that, where I left last time, I would be trying my best to give you some new scientific insight that we have experienced in the last 1 year. That is, apart from the role these chicken cells or any cell plays in providing the protein content or whatever are the ways or scientific ways to regulate that, there are specific taste solutions that need to be resolved. And non-scientifically, the answer to that is flavonoids. And what we do is we do not exactly use these flavonoids, but it is something similar to those flavonoids. We try to understand which flavonoids mimic these chicken-like experiences. And that actually helps us enhance the expectation or enhance or achieve that expectation that a chicken eater or a non-vegetarian eater wants. And this is how we have tried to resolve it. And it has been pretty amazing on those lines.
In terms of smell then, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. On a personal note, being an Indian, again, you would be able to attach to the ingredients that are used to cook chicken, basically enhance or help in enhancing the whole flavor or the smell of the product.
Yeah.
And what we have understood after, again, realizing how plant-based are trying to resolve that, they try to, once you go out in the market, there would not be any chicken nugget by any plant-based company which is a chicken nugget by itself. It would be in combination with other product types. For example, in a burger, it will have attached to it certain other parameters that will add on to the smell and the juiciness to the product. Yeah. Likewise, in what we are trying to do is, we are basically mixing our strategies with respect to the Indian cuisines. And trying those inputs or ingredients of the cuisines to enhance the smell to the product. So apart from taste, we are also working on smell, and that is why in initial messages I told you that our product, we have increased our product types with respect to chicken keema, and expectations are we should have more than 5 products on shelf in the next few months.
Okay. When can the general public try this then?
We are trying our best to make the product available to the public either through tasting events or on shelf as soon as possible, because we have already achieved what we had been working for the last 1 year. So let me try to do some backup and then come to what we are doing. That is, last year we were at POC level, that is proof of concept level. We were only trying to understand or identify solutions to the problem that this industry was trying to resolve. In the last 1 year, we have been able to expand our team, focus primarily on R&D. Yeah. Even COVID did impact us for 1 month, but we are back on our foot trying to resolve that problem. We have, I think, done more than 5-6 types of POCs. We have then moved to a market viable product. And because of that transition, we are now ready to industrialize our product on all fronts. And this is what we are now gearing up. And again, the product should be out there if from what we see it, if the government policies are out there in the next 6 months or within 12 months maximum, as per the global perspective, again, the product should be out the next day the policies are out.
How are you branding it then? Have you started that process?
As of now, we have not started that process because, again, we are in the transition of moving from lab to industry. Yeah. Now, that step basically depends on how the funding would come, how we would be raising money. And what would be the thought process of the co-mentor or investor that would help us gear up. So these are certain challenges because frankly and honestly, we are researchers by nature. Sales is not our cup of tea. So it's better not to get into that until and unless we do not have the right person to do that. So this is something which we are trying to resolve, and it will take its own, again, what I told in the last conversation, that is, be patient, it will take its own sweet time.
And talk about these other products then. You know, why those products specifically? Is it based on the Indian market?
I would slightly differ from what I told last time, that our intention was to target Indian market, but now gradually in the last 1 year, we have realized that apart from targeting or working with keeping a specific market in mind, it's better to expand globally because the potential of your outputs or your POCs or MVPs increases. And the chances of becoming more profitable on grounds of the balance sheets or becoming more achievable increases because you get a better perspective of how the world sees to the product. So during this phase, we were practically, let me be honest again, we were not thinking of expanding our portfolio. The intention was just to bring out at least one product to the people. And what happened was, because we were trying to resolve the taste and smell concern, we somehow stepped on the other product type. And because of this, our openness with respect to our application on this domain, we were able not only to think on the lines of chicken cells, using chicken cells as the base, but we were also able to think on different cell types. So we do call ourselves as the India's first chicken cell-based meat company, but you never know in future because this might not be the right time to disclose it. But but you never know, in future we might become pioneers on other cell types. So fingers crossed, we have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And we have been thankful to the people who have been patient enough in listening to us and helping us out through this story.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, you mentioned policies, and in terms of what the law says, what are the specific policies then?
Let me try to deviate from what we have been talking or what has been our perspective, because it will give you an idea or give the audience an idea how this domain works or what is happening in the last 6 months, to be precise.
Yeah.
In Jan 2020, that is before COVID even happened or there was even thought of COVID, the policies or the governments were just thinking of it as something which is on shelf, a policy which is on table to be reframed on the basis of their specific requirements and understanding the impact of it. But what has happened during this COVID time is the realization that yes, you need solutions to answer this particular problem, because COVID has happened for the first time as in our generation specifically. There have been numerous pandemics before also, but because of the understanding of humans to how to resolve a problem and because of the expansion on all fronts, be it economic or other fronts, everyone is trying to resolve those impacts. The best example to understand is China, and there is a huge food scarcity. I did not want to go politically, but I'm trying my best to give you the outest or the modest example. If you see China specifically, there has been a sudden surge, because I have been specifically monitoring how cell-based meat is evolving. In the last 6 months itself, last year when we talked, there were only 25 plus companies in cell-based domain, and today there are more than 55 companies in cell-based domain. Wow. Apart from that, more than 10 companies which were earlier into cell-based domain have now shifted their gears into alternative protein domain. By that I mean specifically that they have now shifted gears in providing solutions to cell-based meat companies. And this actually shows not only the importance of this particular domain on the privatization factor or the economic factor, but also shows the eagerness within the community or the political communities to pump or push this product. Let me try to give an answer from an Indian perspective. In India, the regulatory body, that is FSSAI, has been trying its best to frame out certain policies, and I have been monitoring them. They have been day and night putting their thoughts into it to deliver something that actually answers both the domains, that is not only cell-based domain, but is also able to keep a track of plant-based domains. Now, this is a slight irony because I am from cell-based domain, but I somehow again and again tumble upon plant-based products because of the reason, again, in the last 6 months itself, this particular plant-based domain has erupted with respect to number of companies and the products that are out there. In India itself, the number of companies in the last 6 months has blown apart from 0 to 30. So you can understand the impact this is having, and this is without even the policies being in place for these specific product type. Now, there are certain concerns, but yes, be it India, be it EU, be it US, everyone is trying their best to put at least some policies, because companies like us are gearing up with the product and we are in dire need for certain policies to push it to the market, because people are realizing the importance of it, not only with respect to the availability of the product, but also the environmental solutions it provides. And frankly, I do not want to offend anyone, because today there is no cell-based product on shelf. That is the only reason I feel personally, I might be wrong in my observation, plant-based has had a boom with respect to a global perspective. And I personally feel, again, the day even one company or even one of my co-companies or people who are working in the same domain is able to deliver at least one product, the day would not be soon that the percentage share would increase as compared to plant-based. So this is again my perspective, and government policies have started to realize the importance of this, because if, let me again talk on the Indian front, India now talks of Atmanirbhar Bharat. And if on all those fronts we are able to develop, which is something in-house, the day is not far away that we are able to resolve our own concerns. And every country has started to realize, be it on any political factor, but it has started to realize the importance of self-sufficiency. So yes, there Sidecar are gearing up, and there is positivity on all fronts, not only Indian government, but be it EU or US, everyone is gearing up, and fingers crossed it should happen soon.
You're doing lots of monitoring. Do you have time to sleep?
There are sleepless nights almost, because I remember the day COVID happened and our labs had to be shut. You would not believe. Today might have been a different call altogether. We might have been talking about how the product tasted for the people, because I tasted my first product in Feb 2020, and the intention was I was coming to US first in April. I had a lineup of meetings and conferences to attend, and the intention was to launch our first product in April itself to the people. So through, be it a tasting event or whatever is the format. But because of that specific COVID and 15 days lockdown, we had to completely shut down our labs. That did impact us because of that, I lost sleep for 40 nights. The reason primarily being whatever efforts we had put in for the last 2 to 3 years and whatever achievements we had made, we had to bring it down to zero. And it was pretty hard to restart everything from scratch and again put it on 100. So these are certain challenges. But again, because that happened, I would be upfront about what we learned. Because that happened, we were able to shell out more product types. We were able to think on different lines. So at the end of the day, what ends up is good for everyone. And whatever happens is actually there is something positive behind it.
I'm interested to know how many sort of prototypes you went through then before you decided to try it.
The best example or the best way to answer this would be, I was literally, everyone at my home was shouting at me because I was bringing those products from lab and cooking it at home. So I think for 4-5 days continuously, there was no cooking apart from what I was doing, and everyone was shouting because they were not able to eat the regular stuff that we had at home. And so I had faced that brunt, but it has been a lovely experience since then.
That's good. You've expanded the team. So are you hiring scientists then? I mean, how would you go about hiring a scientist? What questions would you ask them?
My approach is slightly different. I don't know. Frankly, I have not been on the other side of the interview, that is giving interviews, but I have been the part mostly taking interviews. So from whatever I have learned, that is, I try to give out problems to the person. For me, the person's degrees do not matter. For me, what matters is the value that person brings in, either through whatever emotions or feelings he has towards the approach that he's adopting, and what is his problem solving ability. Because remember one thing, it is easy to find out problems, but it is very difficult to give out solutions. So I try to see it from a different perspective, and whenever we try to hire someone or wherever we are trying to go for any interview, I simply the person shows me his CV or the resume, I simply put it away and start posing questions to him. My intention is, yes, hire the best brains possible, but parallelly also look for people who, apart from best brains, also have the best way to solve problems, because at least whatever he or she is doing, I should be confident enough with respect to whatever approach he has adopted. So this is my strategy, and this is what we have been working, and touch wood, it has been positive on those lines, because there have been times where I practically lost confidence with the product, but the team reworked on it, and I got surprises on many times that they were able to deliver the solution which we even did not thought would be the answers to that.
Yeah, you talked about raising funding. That's gone well, hasn't it?
The last year was pretty amazing. I remember, again, last time when we were talking, same day, same time, I was talking to someone who were willing to fund us, and ultimately they did fund us. And ironically, this time also we are talking to someone and we are at the same stage which we were on discussion levels last time. But yes, so you never know, you might be my lucky charm on those lines. Fingers crossed again. So we are working to basically expand our team, and we are working to raise funds to practically industrialize the strategy that we have created, and working on a new front, because let me put it this way. way. We have been working in-house in a specific lab, which is again leased out from some other sources. So now in order to put our products to shelf, we have to be we have to pass certain regulatory procedures. And in order to pass those regulatory procedures, we have to have our own in-house facility or in-house setup. So we are creating those because that requires a lot of huge pumping on financial fronts. And the intention is not only to grow on the infrastructure pattern, but also expand on the manpower pattern. Because this is one thing which I have realized. You should obviously invest in yourself, but parallelly, you should invest in your team, because if they are happy, no matter what happens, if they are convenient with respect to their approach, no matter what happens with your group, they will be able to take you to the next level. And we have seen this happening in COVID, because as I told you, we were slightly on zero mode during the 15-40 days lockdown. But once we restarted everything, the pace has been enormous. And that is why I want to now ease out my manpower or my team in order they achieve the desired products well before.
In terms of the cost then, I suppose that's really important as well as the taste. There's always a company that could do it cheaper, as it were. Obviously consumers will always go 9 times out of 10 go on price.
I remember last time I had told you that we are working to basically, again, I would be discussing on the lines of INR, that is Indian rupee, and kilograms kg.
Okay.
So I was talking to you last time that we are trying to put our product or pitch our product in a range which is 1000 INR per kg. And the intention is to basically achieve it in the next 1 year. But yes, we have somehow touched that base. And we have realized one more aspect to it, that this industry gets divided into 2 product types. The one is the raw chicken and the another is the processed chicken. Whatever is the background to it, I would not be going on those lines. But we have realized we are starting to hit the pain point of the processed chicken industry. And we have somehow figured out a way. And we are below this 1000 INR per kg marketing value for our product, that is processed chicken product. And we would be able to achieve the market requirement or industry requirement of 50% capping. Let's see, fingers crossed on those lines. Everything is going, as of now, touch wood, on the right track. So waiting for some things to happen and develop, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Last time you came on the show, I asked you about what we're going to be eating in 100 years' time. I don't know if you can remember what you said. It was very strange.
Yeah, I told you water bubbles, right?
For us listeners who didn't listen, go on, explain that.
Last time I told you a thought that I had read somewhere, that was in the next few coming years, the situation might be that you would be drinking a bubble of water and just putting that bubble in your mouth, just like a bubble gum, and water pops out and you drink it. So this was the last time's thought, and this year the thought will be slightly different. You would be amazed. We have been thinking on this again because you asked it. So I will again put it. You might be the lucky charm to the company itself. So because you asked it, so we started to think on those lines also, and we realized that last time also I told you one thing, that the intention is to give out a product which makes it look like you are eating chicken from a chicken which is actually taken from a chicken which is healthy and live sitting next to you. Today, the thought process is you are actually eating that chicken, which is again taken from a chicken which is live and sitting next to you. But apart from that, the thought might be whatever you are eating, it is a pool of those proteins and carbohydrates which are required to keep your body healthy.
Because last time I spoke to you about, you talked about fish and bacon. Where are we on that?
For that time or last year, we were actually thinking on working on those lines. But today I can confidently say that we are on the POC mode, and the intention is to immediately roll out few products on chicken lines and then start working on these formats also.
How does that work in terms of fish then?
Slightly different, but the cooking, I should not say the cooking, but development is, the methodology is same, because the technology that we have developed or the process that we have developed answers or get applies to all cell types. So the technology is same, the methodology changes slightly. Yes, for chicken, we have already worked out on the taste and smell part. But for fish and bacons, we are now gearing up to study on those lines. So it will take another, hopefully, 1 month to gear up on those.
Change anything, looking back?
The best thing I would answer that is, I think I had, with some confidence, told you that be patient, and I had spoken very pretty loud words on those lines. But at the end of the day, when I speak to what I spoke on that particular conversation, I feel that that was the right approach. And yes, these days, because of even COVID, people have started to have that desperation to be successful enough. But again, my only answer to that would be patient and be confident with your approach. The day will come when the sun will rise.
The sun will rise. Dr. Manvati, thank you for coming in your startup show. If people want more information on ClearMeat, what must they do?
They should just write to me at info@clearmeat.com or just visit www.clearmeat.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Doctor. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Neil.
Awesome,
Thank you, Neil. Lovely talking to you.
And yourself. Wish you all the best. Hello, Vivek. Thanks for coming back on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
What's happened since I last spoke to you in August 2016?
Oh, we are living in a different world altogether.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change which has happened since then, and most of the changes happened in last 6 months, where acceptance of the virtual world has now gone up significantly. And all the products and services which are oriented towards digital world, they have seen a massive interest from retail investors or retail public. Mm-hmm. So we are also beneficiary of that. And there's so much work and no time, very less time.
Awesome stuff. Can you share some stats then and downloads and user numbers since we last spoke? I think last time I spoke to you, I think you had about 50,000 downloads on your StockEdge app.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you remember that number. Uh-huh. And I remember that we did celebrate it by cutting a cake.
Oh, nice.
But fortunately now we have almost more than 1.5 million downloads.
Wow.
And almost 1 million registered users. So people are actively using it. There are more than 500,000 monthly active users, mm-hmm. and around 2,500,000 people who are weekly active users. So the journey has been great. And I think the most of the growth has happened in last 8 months to 12 months or so. Mm-hmm. And we are looking forward to do some really, really good, incredible stuff.
Awesome. Well done. Congratulations. You'll have to celebrate by having more cake.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Just go back to the start then. What sort of problem, are you solving?
So what we are trying to do is you are democratizing financial markets to everyone. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm saying democratizing means giving equal right of everything to everyone. Mm-hmm. That's the whole hypothesis of democracy is. So when I relate it with financial market means that, financial market has always been a den for few institutional investors or few HNIs, and they have created very, very large wealth out of this. Mm. And a retail investor, individual investor has not been able to create a very large capital by investing in markets. Mm-hmm. So there is a reason behind that. And if you remember, I told you in 2016 that, the reason are clearly that the level of education is less and people don't have access to data. And largely people have biased analytics or biased research services from various agencies. So what we are trying to do is creating a unbiased setup where people are getting to learn, people are getting access to data and certain unbiased analytics. And it's actually giving that power of doing things on your own, which is helping individual investors to come up and not do what exactly other intermediaries are asking them to do, creating their own framework of looking at things the way they want it to be.
How do you sort of onboard people if they're sort of like the first time investors then?
So the first thing for a first time investor is to learn. Mm-hmm. That's where I think most of the time and energy and focus should go to. Yeah. So we have this product called elearnmarkets.com, which is India's largest financial market training portal. Yeah. It's a marketplace where there are more than 100 plus experts who are creating specialized content in the domain of financial management. Nice. Now, there are a lot of free content. We create a lot of free content and post it in YouTube as well. So in our YouTube channel, now we have almost 350,000 YouTube subscribers and almost 15 million views of our videos.
Wow.
So creating a lot of free content and then letting people identify their specialized need and then catering to that need by offering them that specialized course is something which we started with. And now we have almost 350,000 learners in Elearnmarkets who have taken some module from us.
So what makes the most money then? Is it the app or the e-learning stuff? And why is that?
So, the first thing when we started learning, the focus was more on the youngsters, age bracket of around 21, 22, typically people who are kickstarting their career and they want to take career opportunities in financial market as one of the serious options for them. But as we progressed, as we mature as an organization, we found that there is a massive gap in providing right learning and right data to even experienced people who are already there in the market. And that's where we created StockEdge in 2016. And that also serves a bridge between theoretical understanding of market to the practical application of that theoretical understanding. So it has every data point one would need to analyze what has been taught to that person. So to answer your question, most of the users who are experienced people or who have just learned from us and now gaining experience, they are on StockEdge. And they subscribe to the premium features of StockEdge as well. And most of the youngsters or people who want to go for some kind of an upskilling of specific thing, they are on Elearnmarkets. So and a lot of people who are there in both, they want to learn as well as they want to practice. Both of them, they are there in both these modules.
Interesting stuff. So so you've gone from 50,000 downloads to 1.5 million downloads. In terms of scaling, how have you scaled that? From a business point of view and a tech point of view.
So in terms of, I think in 2016 we were around 25-30 employee company. Today we are 140 people.
Wow.
And everything which has been developed in our products, be it learning videos or content or blog or the software itself, everything is in-house.
Yeah.
So out of 140, I would say 30 odd people would be on the tech side. Around 40 odd people would be on the knowledge and the research side. And the rest 50, 60 people would be on the business development and the operation side. In terms of revenue, we are doing fairly good. We are monthly EBITDA positive. So good point is that we are not burning any money anymore. The hard part of money burn or investment in the business is now behind us.
That's
now
good.
We are making money every month. And in terms of revenue, we are doing around, in rupee terms, we are doing around 1.25 crore every month.
Nice. How does that make you feel?
It's satisfactory because when you do business for the purpose of making money as well as adding value to society at large, that's where you get the maximum kick. I'm not the kind of person who does business just for the sake of valuation. I'm very, very focused on creating sustainable business with sustainable product and very, very large followings of that product. And I'm very satisfied the way things have progressed with us.
Interesting. What was it always your ambition to do this then?
Well, I would say that I'm a very, very, very unique entrepreneur because I'm sure that there are many people like me, but I want to consider myself to be unique because I keep on identifying new opportunities for myself. I get inside that opportunity for a period, and then I always work with good partners. I've been blessed with partners in all my ventures, and these are the guys who actually lead the business after a point of time. So since my career, I started my career in 2006, and since then I've been involved in building around 3 businesses with multiple partners. And for 4-5 years, I get involved in that business. I give shape to that business, and we create some sustainable business model around that business. And then I keep on identifying new opportunities to those businesses.
Nice.
And then I jump into those opportunities.
Oh, nice. But how do you go about finding great partners then? What qualities, what skills are you looking for? Someone completely different to you or something similar to you?
Well, the most important thing is the person should be like me. We should go along well. And there should be very strong complementary skill. So I always seek people with similar kind of a temperament. Otherwise, it's very difficult to work with people with below temperament or higher than mine temperament. And the second is that if I have a certain skill set, I always want someone with a better skill set or a complementary skill set to join me. For example, in StockEdge, my tech partner is my school friend. We have studied together since class 1.
Ah, nice.
And and it's been almost, I would say, almost 35 years since we have been together.
Yeah.
But he was an independent businessman running his own software company, and I was a financial market guy. So we thought that there is a good marriage possibility, that I need his technical skills and he would need my understanding of market, and that led to development of StockEdge.
But do you still consider this as a startup then, or is this like a proper business now, a fully matured business now? Because you got 140 people on the payroll now. It's not exactly not working out your mum's basement anymore.
So technically, every new business these days are startup. Even Uber is a startup. So, and there's a reason why I was reading this article about Google and why Gmail was beta for a long period of time. Because, it's the state of thought process inside a company where you say that your product is always beta because you are continuously improvising on it. And a tech product should never be a final product. It should always be a beta product. So the same logic is, you should always have a thought in your mind that you are a startup, no matter how much value you have created, because that gives a different sense of energy and youthness into the company. And it also drives you, given the fact that you are also young and driving a young company.
What can go wrong then? Or do you have sleepless nights and stuff like that?
So I'm almost 42.
Right.
And, at some point of time, I would like to settle down because I can't keep on working for 16 years, 16 to 17 hours a day.
Wow.
But the fact that you are a startup, you tend to spend so much time consciously or subconsciously. So that obviously disturbs your mental state and your personal life and your emotional well-being. So after a point of time, you don't want to feel like a startup. You want to feel like someone who is a businessman and making a sustainable business. So I think we as an organization have reached that stage. Now we are making monthly money, we are making profit. So in few probably months or years, now we will kind of remove this tag of being a startup and become more like a businessman now.
Is this a success then?
I think success for me directly comes with two factors, and both are human in nature. One is how many people you have employed, because I think number of employees and the satisfaction of the employees drives success. And that's my parameters. Doesn't mean that a one-person organization cannot be successful. Sure, it can be. But for me, being able to give employment opportunity to so many people and they're still there with us and satisfied, that's my biggest kick. The second is people-oriented is the customers. That how many customers do you have and are they satisfied, or are you trying to solve any particular of that customer, and are they renewing your service or not? The moment these two are giving you a reasonable size, I think you can define yourself to be successful.
We didn't talk about your background before in the last podcast, because you were working on a trade desk for 15 years, employing 150 traders. Is that right? What was that like?
Yes. So I'm a third generation financial market guy. My grandfather was a trader. My father is a trader. So it was a very natural extension for me to start a bigger trading desk. So I did my chartered accountancy, company secretary, and an MBA from IIM Indore. Then I joined Bombay in a firm as a commodities analyst. And then I worked there for a couple of months before I came back to Calcutta, and I started my own commodities trading desk. So from commodities trading to currency trading to multi-asset trading. So we have around 150 traders now trading on our behalf, and my brother is now full-time into it and he's looking at it. And since 2013, I changed my goalpost and I started focusing on, creating products which will give larger value addition in society. And that's where Elearnmarkets and StockEdge became my passion and my new baby. My trading desk, fortunately, is doing good, and my brother and my family is taking care of it. So it's pretty much a stable cash cow, and we are trying to create growth enterprise around StockEdge.
What do you think are the qualities needed to be a good trader then? Let's say I wanted to work for you as a trader. What would you look for?
As a trader, I think I would say 30% is your hard skills, 70% is your soft skills. So soft skill is typically the temperament, your ability to act fast, your presence of mind, and your ability to square up your trade and incur losses. The most important trader is the guy who knows when to incur losses. Okay. And no successful trader run for profit. Right. Most successful traders globally will run for least losses. And according to them, profit maximization will automatically happen if you know the art of reducing your loss. Okay. So that will only happen once you develop that temperament thing. And for that understanding of market psychology, the emotional part of dealing with the situation. So that takes time. Over a period of time, you build it. So if you ask people that if you want to get into trading, what do you need to do? Then people will say, learn technicals, learn market behavior, etc. I always say that first you learn about you, about your behavior, your style, and match that style with the market and see whether there is any edge which you can create for yourself. So I think that's the most critical thing. What works for you may not work for me.
Interesting. How do you deal with the losses then? Obviously, it's going to happen. The good days as well as the bad days. You must have had a few bad days. How have you mentally coped with that then?
So my losses are always to the extent of the amount which will not disturb my evening sleep.
Okay.
So because I've defined that risk management for myself, that if I lose certain $100,000 or something, then will I get into any kind of pressure? My answer is no. Then I know that amount is a good yardstick for me to offer my risk management. So I don't go overboard. I have my limits all set, and I know where to square up my trade.
Let's talk about investing then. What are the common mistakes investors make? First-time investors.
So the most common mistake people make is they get into market as a trader, and when the stock price goes against them, they consider that to be investment. So if I'm buying a stock at say $100 and the stock price went down to 80, rather than squaring up their position, considering that the stock has gone into downward trend, people typically assume it to be their investment book. So investment biasness gets originated because of price movement. So first thing first, people have to do is when they are investing, they can't look at price. Typically, a good stock is always expensive, so which will not allow you to buy. And a weak stock will always be cheap. And your tendency will always be to buy cheap and sell expensive, whereas the whole world has changed now. The world is now momentum oriented. So you have to buy expensive to sell more expensive.
Interesting stuff. And how much should I invest? Let's say, is it 10% of my personal wealth, 20%?
See, I would suggest, I'll give you a formula that depending upon what your age is, you say 100 minus your age should be allocated for your risky investments. So suppose your age is 40 and that means 60% of your capital should be allocated for risky assets, which typically is equity or mutual funds around equity. The rest 40% should be around bond market or gold. Okay. And obviously you have to decide the allocation of bond market and gold as well. Within that 40%. But suppose your age is 80, then 80% would be around bond market and gold and 20% would be on equity. I think if someone follows this simple method of 100 minus your age and using that numerator to come out with your allocation required in risky assets, and we talk about risky assets, then obviously equity becomes the most prevalent risky asset. And obviously there is a science in this equity also, that what kind of capital allocation should be there in sector wise or in stock wise. So that whole science has to be understood before you can charter a proper wealth creating plan for yourself.
Yeah, you mentioned emotions and stuff like that before. What about things like using your gut reaction, your intuition?
I think gut is a very, very important phenomenon. And I think a lot of places, human gut has been scientifically defined as well. So yes, you should believe your gut. Ultimately, tools could provide you right framework to implement your gut, but finally it's the gut which acts. For example, I can give you a revolver, which could be very, very sophisticated, but ultimately how to target the target is something which your gut will say at the end of the day that, yes, I feel the target is now possibly going to hit. So I think human ability in terms of the final leg of this whole journey, where finally you have to take a gut feeling that, yes, this is the right thing I'm doing, that plays a very, very important role in the final leg of the implementation.
In terms of stocks and currency trading, what's the best?
That's a tricky one. So I don't consider one stock to be the best. I think I have this philosophy of 10-10-10, where I tell people that, just focus in 10 stock. So say when you start in stock market, this should be your formula. 10-10-10 means take one stock every month, and over a period of 10 months, just focus on 10 stocks.
Right.
And allocate not more than 10% of your capital per month should go as a loss. Okay. So if suppose any particular month you lose 10% of your capital, you stop trading for that month and prepare yourself for the next month again, so that maximum loss which you can incur, say, unfortunately, if suppose you lose every month, then maximum loss you will incur over a period of 10 months will be your 100% capital. So at least you are not leveraging yourself. So if you do this 10-10-10, means 10 stock for a period of 10 months with maximum 10% loss per month, you will develop a very strong temperament framework for yourself. You will develop that discipline. And if you restrict yourself to 10 stocks for a period of few more years, I think you will get the perfect recipe of making money from those 10 stocks.
In terms of stocks, are you saying global stocks or domestic stocks, or does it not matter?
See, again, these 10 stocks will be part of your circle of competence. So, if I understand that company, if I understand their business model, that will become part of my 10 stocks. So it could be sitting in India, I would like to invest in Amazon because I like their business model. Or I also like to invest in Reliance because I like their business model as well. So it could be combination of international as well as domestic, or it could be only domestic, depending upon how much you are able to understand about a particular stock as well as sector.
What's the best stock you've invested in then?
The best stock I've invested for the last 5 to 6 months is Reliance Industries. I believe that Reliance is a company where Google and Amazon have done at a global level. Reliance is doing it at an India level. I have a simple mathematics. I say that, Google is almost $800 to $900 billion company, and Facebook is a $600 billion company. Now, the common thing among them is the access of user information, which they are monetizing.
True.
I think Reliance is going to be one such company which has every information about the Indian customer, and they've started monetizing it by offering them multiple services, including broadband service, including household things through JioMart, etc. So I think Reliance, with only $150 billion valuation, whereas other people are much higher valued, I think Reliance is a company which should always be a buy. But it has become expensive. I'll not deny it. I've been saying this since the stock price was 100 rupees. Now it is 2,200. The stock is expensive, but I believe the stock will remain expensive always. So whenever there is any fall in the market, one stock which should definitely accumulate at every fall in the market is Reliance.
No, interesting. So what I have to ask you, what's the worst stock you've invested in? One that's tanked.
Yes, that's... So, again, this is also one of those Reliance companies where I invested. But the other brother Reliance, called Reliance Capital. So I invested in that company because I thought from a financial market perspective, they were well placed to create something far, far bigger, better. But unfortunately, they failed miserably thanks to the whole business modus operandi of the younger brother. That's where I lost most of the money. But I was smart enough to, book my loss very early.
Can you share some success stories then of people who've downloaded the app or people who've done courses and got onto good things, perhaps?
I mean, there are a lot of individuals who keep on writing to us that, yes, they are able to trade on their own now and they're independent now. Because the biggest thing which is required in our country, in India right now, is that people are not satisfied with their job and people want to explore an opportunity to become independent by getting into stock market. And for that, full-time learning of trading and investing is required. So there have been a lot of people who have continuously giving us feedback, and StockEdge is anyways full of feedback. So people, and I recently just got a feedback in Twitter where people said that someone said that I enrolled for StockEdge and the same day I generated an idea and next day I traded the idea and my cost of StockEdge was recovered the next day. Now StockEdge is free for me for a whole year. And he was thanking me that, sir, you have made this brilliant tool and at such a reasonable cost that it doesn't pay in our pocket. At the same time, it gives us opportunity to make far bigger money than the amount which you are charging for your tool.
In your personal life, are you like a spender or a saver?
Very honestly, I would say I'm in a balance category. I love to spend because I love shopping as well. And particularly in technology, I love to spend. I mean, every year I need new laptop, I need latest configuration, and I keep on trying with new things. So, technology at time could be very expensive. So that's where I'm very, very, I would say my hand is very open. But, but I know where my limit is. So I definitely don't go overboard in luxury. I'm pretty happy with a nominal car. But I love technology. I can spend any amount in taking new technology.
Nice. What's been the best purchase so far then?
I just purchased, last week I purchased this Lenovo laptop T490 because, I love their keyboard and love the whole setup. Unfortunately, it's a Chinese company I don't like. But, it's just the way it is that the laptop, the keyboard is so good that you just feel like just buying them. There's no one else. And unfortunately, when it was IBM, it was much more satisfactory. But with Lenovo branded, it kind of dilutes the satisfaction, but that's okay.
As someone who spends their life with money, what is the most important lesson about money?
Well, the most important lesson about money is, the value of money is continuously eroding, and we have to accept that fact. And we have to keep on figuring out how do you preserve that value by investing in assets which will give you far better return than the loss in the value of money. And that is not an option anymore. So people have to be very proactive, because on the expense side, our lifestyle is definitely evolving and we all love to spend more. And, consumerism, I think it at its best, if you see the history of mankind, I think we have never seen this kind of a consumerism ever, thanks to Amazons of the world. So that will keep on growing. But the revenue side of your money, that still needs to be properly planned. And I am a zero leveraged person, so I have not taken a single rupee of debt. And that gives me a very, very peaceful sleep. So I will never compromise on my sleep in return to luxury which money can buy to me.
Last few questions then. You raised finance as well. Quickly talk about that and how that came about and how's that going?
So, while you develop a good product, there are various kind of people in society who would use those products. And then there are certain category of people who would love that product and who would probably eventually end up loving you as well. So that was my story about fundraising. So since StockEdge is such a powerful product, I used to interact with individuals, very reputed individuals who were using the product. They used to call me to Bombay to talk about what I am doing. And one fine day, they just said that in case you need any money someday, I will be happy to chip into your contribution. Because I know you are spending your money and you would someday need our money as well. So that's how we structured the fundraising in 2018. So we raised small money, almost $500,000 money from $500,000 from few individuals. So we have 5 awesome mentors, individuals who have given some money. And since then, we have been running business as a business, trying to run it considering that money is our money, spend it the way it is required. And now we are a bit of positive company. So far, fundraising has been very limited. We diluted around 7% stake in 2018. And we still own a large part of the company, and we are a bit of positive company. So I'm very, very proud of that.
I spoke to you 4 years ago. I think I asked you about what qualities entrepreneurs should have and what should they be focusing on. Just if has anything changed since then? Have you got any more insights on entrepreneurship and startup advice?
I think the most critical thing, which I don't remember what the exact discussion we had, but if I would have to say that most critical thing one is required to be a successful entrepreneur is adaptability to change. And that involves a lot of learning and unlearning. And as you grow old, your propensity to unlearn goes down, and the propensity to learn also kind of plateaus. But as an entrepreneur, you have to continuously learn because the world is changing every 3 years. Who would have thought that almost 70% of global advertisement will be done through digital marketing? Who would have thought what Apple has done, that people would value more experience than the product? So all these changes, which is coming every 3 years, 4 years, one has to live with those changes. For example, I'm learning machine learning right now.
Oh, nice.
I'm a chartered accountant, so for me, imagining that I'm learning machine learning is actually quite intrinsic, but that's the need of the hour. Everything which I'm doing has to have a component of machine learning because that's the future.
Will this be done by, it's probably been done by robots already, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So robots are already there in our life, and they are changing every aspect of our life for good. But I strongly believe that finally that human side of being human, that will always be required in long term. We call it the EQ side. So robots would be great in IQ management, but in terms of EQ, I think there is still a lot of work to be required to be done there. And all this natural language processing and machine learning, etc., these are tried to replace humans in the domains of emotions as well. But I think there is still a lot of scope of having a 100% replacement. So, but if you have a combination of human side as well as robots in this model, that's, I think, the most dynamic combination. And we are trying to implement all these things in our products so that the human side is also there, and the robotic side, which is all mechanical in nature, that also is there to increase the efficiency of our offerings.
Interesting stuff. In terms of the stock markets, or globally, or you can talk about the Indian stock market, where are we? In the next 6 months, will it go up or will it go down, or who knows what's going to happen, right?
Well, I see, ultimately, stock market globally is a function of interest rates. Okay. This is a mother statement I'm giving to you, because that's the most important statement, that whether globally there will be liquidity driven rise or not depends upon the cost of capital. So if you see the interest rates in US is almost 25 basis point, in Europe is 0%, in Japan it's minus 10 basis point. So largely, if the interest rates remains low, all the global markets will continue to perform because liquidity is chasing assets, and that is eventually going to build up a bubble, but then no one can time the bubble. So whether bubble will be off in 6 months or it will go for 6 years, no one can time that. It depends upon the overall outlook of global economy and what the central banks in the economy on various economies are trying to do with the interest rates. So to answer the question, in coming 6 months, I don't see Indian market falling, although we have US elections in November. So that can actually create some kind of a disturbances. But I think in 6 months, Indian market is going to see new high, and people will... the market will go in a zone which will be an unbelievable zone. So people will question, but market will have its own path of going higher and high.
In terms of Bitcoin, you probably get asked that quite a lot. What are your thoughts on the cryptocurrency side of investing? Is that something you get involved with?
No, never got involved there, because, I have a very strong belief that any financial asset without backup of real asset has no meaning. So for me, crypto has, unfortunately, I've never been able to understand what's the basis of crypto. So I've not been able to kind of get convinced with that yet.
Staying away from crypto. Awesome. So what are you working on right now then? Anything exciting?
So right now, the whole energy is into StockEdge and how I can make StockEdge the Bloomberg for retail investors. And the whole path is towards that and help people get access to ready-made analytics, ready-made outputs, which will help them to take a straightforward decision of when to buy and what to buy. So the whole energy is going there and a lot of work on the retail investor education side. And I've been very active on social platform. My Twitter has now more than 60,000 followers and continuously helping people to learn and trying to answer their queries and trying to create a framework for them so that they really, really get into this habit of doing their own research rather than becoming dependent on others.
Awesome stuff. Vivek, thank you for coming on the show today. If people want more information on what you do, how can they connect?
Well, the easiest way is to connect through Twitter. So my Twitter handle is Viv Bajaj, VIV Bajaj. And if you have the patience to write email, then my email ID is vivek@stockedge.com.
Vivek, thank you for coming back on the show today. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thanks a lot, Neil. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You are doing a great job. And it's really, really, it's a happy feeling to talk to you and your voice.
Good to speak to you, man. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Minakshi. Thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Thank you, Neil. I'm happy to be here.
And what was the initial desire to do this?
I was doing my hotel management. I did my hotel school degree, and during that time, I started bartending for a little bit of extra pocket money, and just like everybody else does. And while doing that, I realized I really enjoyed bartending, and I really got interested in the field. I started, learning about beverages, about wines, about terroir, about history, and then I realized that it's just not fun and games. It's a real serious subject, and if you are interested in doing something in this field, it can be really, really exciting. And then I kind of leaned towards it as a career as well. And thankfully, luckily, I met some good mentors early on who helped me navigate this field, because in India it was very tough. It's actually not legal for girls to bartend in India until very recently the law changed, and that sort of was a difficult sort of time for me, where I couldn't figure how do I go ahead in this field, how do I bartend, how do I still be in the bar and be part of the industry that I love so much. And during that time is when I sort of leaned towards beverage marketing, sales, and events, etc. And that's when I realized that this can also be a fun thing to do. And actually, it was a lot about finding your passion. And along the way, I think I'm really, really glad that I found that and I've met the people who helped me figure that out as well. And from there on, it sort of became easier. I think once I recognized that what I want to do in life, I think then it just flowed. And since then, I've been in the industry.
Yeah. What was it specifically that you liked about bartending then? I did it for 2 days and quit after 2 days.
No, bartending is a serious job, and I think that everyone gets into bartending. I mean, everyone internationally, everyone you meet always tells you that they've gotten into bartending just to make a little bit of extra money, and on the side, and eventually they'll be doing something else. And that is exactly how I also got into it. In terms of I started bartending, and then I realized it's actually serious hard work, and it's a lot of fun. It was also a lot about shining your personality. It was a lot about interacting with new people, interesting people. I love that. I mean, I'm a very, very people person, so I think I enjoyed that a lot. And I'm telling you, it's almost like when you're behind the bar, it's like a stage and everyone's watching you. It's that whole vibe also that you feel like the center of attention a lot of times, which is super exciting. Like, it's almost like a theater artist loves being in the theater for the same reason. And it sort of worked really well. It was serious hard work, and I actually enjoyed it. And it actually became like a sport. It was this major adrenaline rush that you get after working 14-15 hours straight, and still you actually look forward to the going back to work the next day. I think that's when I realized this is something I love doing.
Yeah. Obviously, you said that, women working in bars is, uncommon. What were the early days like?
Yeah. So, in fact, this is, we are talking about 15, 16 years ago. And back then, of course, things were very different. There were only one or two other women who had bartended or were bartending at that time. I don't really remember meeting any peers at that time. And during that time also, there was this whole concern of safety and security and all of that, because, traditionally it's tough in India because there's a taboo already that exists for Indians. So, liquor is never seen as, or at least wasn't being seen in a positive light for the longest time. You would see, I don't know if you've seen any Hindi movies where, Bollywood movies in which villains are always drinking and, they are the ones who are always laughing out loud and having these bottles of booze. So has been always portrayed in a very negative light, and I think it'll take a while culturally for us to get out of it. For children to not hide from their parents that they drink, or actually sit with their fathers and mothers and on the table and have a drink once in a while. And we see that change now coming. I think it's happening slowly and gradually. People are more accepting, but it was tough at that time because all this was not going on. It was all very almost shady. So if you're a girl who works in the bar, then of course you'll be easy, or so it was always almost interpreted like that. So it was a tough time back then, and I think that was the reason why I think I could not even continue bartending as well, because I realized that I don't have any future here. Like it's I won't really get anywhere. I'll become a bar manager somewhere, which I absolutely did not want to be. That's why I sort of changed track and got into marketing and sales, etc.
So when did you have the sort of light bulb moment that you wanted to do your own thing, as it were?
That started started very, very early, and I always wanted to, like, it was, it's one of those, you have your bucket list, right? So you want to write a book, which I will someday, I think. You want to have your own bar, you want to, of course, you want to do Kilimanjaro. So you have your list, right? You have your bucket list. I do too. So bars are always up there for most of us. And I think it was always there. And because I was in the industry, I always felt that, India doesn't have, or, the places that I've been to, I was in the liquor industry, I was traveling a lot. And the entire time I realized that there were very, very few and far locals and, casual bars that was just about getting to know people, about the bartender. It was mostly about, it was a lot about, showing off, very nightclub sort of formats, very, very, very clubby kind of a vibe. They weren't really like, relaxed, chill, this is your neighborhood and, get to know your bartender and, all of that. So I think very early on, I realized that, this is a great potential. And then at that time, I was talking to my current business partner saying that, let's do something about it. So we started our first, in fact, project plan in an Excel sheet around about 2006-7, and that's when I first made my Excel sheet. And then finally, we opened one in 2012. So it took that long to reach there. So it was always a dream, and I think it was in the making, and I'm glad that it happened the way it did. We didn't rush into it, and I think we opened it at the right time when we were ourselves financially as well as I think emotionally ready to invest that much time and attention to it. So I think it worked out well.
6 years, it was a long time.
It's like that blog you keep writing to think that one day it's going to make into a book, right? So I had that Excel sheet was always like constantly getting tweaked, and I had a bunch of images. I still have that folder, and I time and again go back to it. Something about the menu, something about the uniform, something about the signage. It was always in your dream, right? So it's like a dream project which was in the making. And I think sometimes I feel that if you can manifest your dream, that's the best thing you can do as an entrepreneur. And I always feel that you should be able to visualize what you actually want to make. And I think that is extremely important. Like, you shouldn't be vague about it. You need to be really, really like, it's almost like you can touch and feel and taste it. So it should be that real to you. And I think that's when, the transformation happens for you to feel that kind of fire in your belly.
I must have a look at this Excel spreadsheet. What were the numbers, and how accurate were the numbers then, looking back?
Oh, they were terrible. We had no idea. So I think nobody has any idea. I mean, you think you know it all, and you've done your research, and you've done everything, and I think when it hits you, when you do your own stuff, you realize that you're all over the place. We made all our mistakes that I think everyone does. We calculated the location wrong. We got almost the rental. I think the only thing we got right was the rental. And other than that, I mean, our carpenters were like, the architect was bad. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong in it. We had a chef who we had to fire just 2 weeks before we were opening. Then we didn't have bartenders. We couldn't train them. We were all over the place. And I think that is the journey that we had to make. And I'm glad it happened like that, because I think it kept us on our toes for a full year. Like full year, we were literally living there. So we would go in the morning and stay there the whole day and close the place. Even if there were 2 or 3 tables, we would do that. And that kind of, I think, perseverance pays off, in the long run. Yeah,
excellent. Were you taken seriously in the early days then?
Yeah. No, you were like, consumers, like the guests who came in loved us. And I think that was day one. We got a lot of attention and love from the people. Even if there were 5 people, 5 tables, they would all go back super happy. I think it was mostly because my business partner, who's also a very well-known mixologist, he was bartending himself. And that was in itself a great privilege for us. And I was serving. So literally, like in India, that doesn't really happen. If you go to bars and restaurants in India, the main investors or the partners will never be actually doing the work. They will always be the ones who will, who are the big bosses, and they'll come and go out of meetings, but they won't be really there for you to serve you, to talk to you. But I think we broke that sort of almost like it was almost like a cultural ceiling that we broke, where we were doing our own stuff. And we enjoyed it like thoroughly. So to get to know your guests, and so I think we got a lot of appreciation from there. Industry wise, like from the restaurant industry, from the bar industry, that took some time in the sense that while I was from a beverage company, I worked with Pernod and Diageo and all of that. They didn't know about us, but that you need to still prove yourself, right? So in the industry, you need to prove yourself, in terms of recognition, in terms of awards and all of that. I mean, in terms of course, the basic sales and the numbers. So, so I think, so we earned it over a period of time, I would say.
When was a specific breakthrough moment then?
Yeah. So I think that was almost 8 to 9 months down the line. I think that was how long it took us to actually stabilize, to feel confident enough to leave the place or not be around like for 24 hours. So I think that happened 8 to 9 months down the line, where we got our call for our first award actually by Times of India. It's a huge media company in India, and so we got a call saying you've been nominated for the best bar. And we got nominated for I think in 3 categories, or I think 4. And I was shell-shocked. I was like, what? We, like, out of nowhere, we are like a nobody in the middle of nowhere, and who cares about us, kind of a thing. And they nominated us, and then I laughed about it with my business partner. We both had this joke that, of course, we are not winning anything. This is just a whatever, feel good kind of a factor. And then we got a call after some time, a month down the line, saying that we've won in all the categories. And that was quite an awakening for us, and I think that was massive. It was almost like, wow, we never knew we were that good. How I think we never looked at ourselves like that. And to actually win an award for best bar, best cocktails, best ambience, all of that, I think that was our first almost trigger, where we got to kind of see the other side of the spectrum, where people are like, okay, now we can be taken seriously. We have a place, in this industry and all of that. Yeah.
No, good stuff. How did you get Indians to drink cocktails then?
It was tough that time. We were like I said, I was working in the liquor industry. My business partner has been bartending for 25 years now. So back then, I mean, he's been very, very almost, at the pinnacle of it. So he's been bartending. He's has a bartending school. He's been consulting. So we are both very much clued in with the industry. So that ways we knew our cocktails, we knew what we were trying to do. We had a very, very clear-cut vision where we decided to make a speakeasy style bar.
Yeah.
And then that was clear. Then we had the Prohibition era cocktails, and we did the whole music. So we had jazz bands that were playing, and everything worked beautifully. The uniforms, the everything just worked beautifully. The food, in fact, the way it was even hidden away. You had it. People still have a tough time finding it. I mean, that is really the idea of a speakeasy, and when we did that initially, yes, it was kind of difficult to getting people to reach to you, but then of course people turned up eventually. That was the nice thing.
Go for that. Excellent. So going back to this spreadsheet, I'm fascinated in terms of the themes and concepts then, because obviously the bar scene in India is quite competitive now. Where did you get your ideas from then, or your inspiration?
It was all about the global scene, what was happening internationally. So, like I was telling you, the background was already there. We were pretty clued in. We were very much into the, entrenched. I've been almost like reading Gary Regan's newsletters for like 10 years before that. I was following academics. We were following Angus Winchester. So a lot of international, very well-known people. We were already kind of seeing what they're doing. We knew what is happening in New York, in London, all of that. So it was like, you're watching and you're seeing that's where the trend is at. And we knew that, there's something like that, this doesn't exist in India so far. And I think that was a clear, very, very good understanding that we had of the market that we were operating in. And we were very confident of that. And initially, it was tough to get people to have cocktails and to actually convince them to enjoy the drinks, but it was just about going with your gut. And in fact, one of my famous lines that I used to say to all our guests was that I would offer them a cocktail, and I would always say that if you don't like it, give it to me, I can use a drink. And that almost every time worked, because people would be like, of course, nobody returns a cocktail that easily. So that worked every time, and people eventually realized that if somebody would order, say, a highball, just like a whiskey or a soda and a whiskey water, which is the standard way that Indians were drinking mostly at that time, we could convert them to, say, a mint julep or an old fashioned, of course, and whiskey sours as well. So that's where I think the transition started happening, when I think we started betting on ourselves versus any other trend. So we weren't following anyone as such, I think we were just following ourselves and our own gut mostly.
Yeah, that's good. What kind of customers are you attracting now then?
So depending on the location, Delhi attracts a lot more, mobile, like a lot more global audience. Delhi has it has a lot of expats and a lot of well-traveled, well-heeled people, and Gurgaon has a lot more corporate working category. So both the bars, where they're located, is the kind of places like people they're attracting. But having said that, both attract a very similar, at the end of it, the vibe is very much the same, that they're all looking for a good cocktail and a bar experience more than anything else. And I think that has been wonderful.
Awesome stuff. So started in 2006 with a spreadsheet. Fast forward to 2020, you were in the top 50 bars in Asia. What a great journey. What do you think about that?
Oh, stoked. I mean, there is absolutely no words. And it happened during COVID, which is good and bad both, because if it wasn't for COVID, we would have celebrated this with the fraternity in Singapore, and it would have been a massive party forever, I think, for a week. And we would have done that. But having said that, the fact that it's happened, during this tough time, which is also a great relief, because it's just something that to actually lean on and to actually feel better about yourself, and anything works, right? Right now, any sort of motivation is good motivation, and this has been huge because, winning India's best bar, winning, even getting into the Asia's 50 list is a big deal for us, because so far none of the Indian bars have ever been taken seriously or haven't been talked about. And I think after this happened, we've gotten connected with a lot of people in the Asia industry. Singapore, Hong Kong are miles ahead of us. In the way they do their drinks, the way they do their bars. Even the community is super strong. I think we are learning from there. We will also get there in a few years. This stopgap, I wish this hadn't happened. But I think we'll reach there sometime.
Is it pressure on or pressure off now that you're in the top 50 bars in Asia and India's best bar?
Yeah, it is there, but I don't think so that we take ourselves that seriously, and I think that's always been the truth about, I think at the end of it, you are still in the bar industry. You need to have fun. You need to, make friends, and you're doing this. At the end of it, it's a very, very social sort of a job. It's hospitality, right? You need to make people feel good about coming to the bar, and that's your key job. Yeah. I mean, your cocktail can be changed, your cocktail can be tweaked if you don't like it, but if somebody walks into your bar and they don't feel good about it, then you've lost the plot, right? So I think our main job is to be, and I think that is not no pressure at all, because I think hospitality wise, we know what we're doing. Of course, working on the menu constantly, working on innovation, working on techniques. Those are things that, of course, we have to keep working on all the time.
And you mentioned COVID-19. How did you deal with that on a sort of personal level? Did you go mad during lockdown?
No, not really. I mean, it's been tough. I would be lying if I say that, it's been easy. But having said that, I think we are also blessed with a good team. Everybody kept together. Everybody, I think we've rallied on. We have done a lot of innovations during this time, which is super exciting. Yeah. So we felt that this is something that was almost coming for us. It was this time that we used, just 4-5 months that we got to actually work on our premixes, on our we've been supplying premixes. We've been doing a lot of cocktail workshops. In fact, the number of things that we've done during, and the number of just PowerPoint presentations I've made has been hectic. At the same time, we've also been doing a lot of upskilling, a lot of trainings. So we did a lot of staff trainings, just on basic beverages to actually a little more, complex trainings as well. We've done a lot of internal trainings on biases, on things like, so on sustainability. So you're actually refocusing on priorities where we should, because you're so busy in your normal day in life. We realize this is a great time to actually, regroup and, just sort of rejig our the way we've been doing things, and maybe we've been ignoring a lot of things, which we should be focusing on. So I think that we worked on that, which I'm super glad about. Yeah, but otherwise mentally it's been bad.
Yeah. What would you say? What have you learned about yourself during the lockdown period?
I have learned, this most amazing thing about myself, that I would always constantly crib about the fact that, I don't have any time. I don't, get any time off, and I have a little baby, I don't get time with my husband. So there was always this thing in me that, one day in a week I take day off, and even then your phone rings or something happens, you need to go to an event, if you're not at your bar, you're at someone else's bar. So these late nights, so I was doing that constantly. And then when I think COVID hit is when I realized that that I actually like doing all that. It's not that so I missed it terribly. And we miss it even now, because obviously things are not back to normal, but I actually enjoy that lifestyle. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the meetings. It gives me that excitement and the focus, which I think I terribly need. I can only chill for that much longer. So, read that book and, do your, Netflix and chill can only take you that far. I think after some time I was like, what next? And I realized that drive was within me. I just wasn't, you are obviously constantly focusing on other things, but this is something, and I got to spend a lot of time with my family, which I think I'm super thankful about. Yeah.
You mentioned your co-founder. How did you guys meet then?
So like I said, Yangdup Lama, he's a very well-known mixologist, and he I met in fact right after college. So he was one of the people who actually helped me get into the bar industry, bartend, and he was almost like my mentor. And then over the years we became like colleagues, where when I was working in liquor industry, then I was hiring him as a consultant or as a trainer, and then over a period of time, the conversation started about let's make a bar together and all of that. And I think I got super lucky to find somebody who was already so established and who knew what he's doing. I think I could, you can take a bet on someone that and you already respect so much for the work that they've done.
Let's talk cocktails then. What's your favorite cocktail then?
Oh, it keeps changing, with time, and I think that I'm not like. It's also the mood and the space that I'm at. So I love in a really nice classic bar. If I would sit, I would love a Manhattan or a Negroni, a very spirit forward, nice, a whiskey based cocktail, or for a Negroni also is beautiful, and if I'm out, if I'm on a girls trip or a friends zone, which is a very different vibe and zone, then it will be margaritas and beers, and so I kind of am in between the two. Yeah, but margaritas are my all-time favorite holiday drinks, and they are the ones that you relax with.
What's the most popular cocktails that you serve then?
So yeah, we do a lot of whiskey sours and old fashions, which is still the classics, which is where it is at. I think, and that's also great because you can't beat the classics. And I'm a very while we do a lot of innovation and a lot of new drinks and creatively as well, we are very deep rooted and seated with our classics as well. So you can't mess with them. So you should get your martinis right, and you should get your Manhattans right. Yeah.
What's the secret behind a really good cocktail then? I've had a few sort of disappointing cocktails here. What's
it's funny. I always say this, that the secret behind a really good cocktail is not anything but the bartender who's making it. And I've always felt that, if it's the drink is not so much as an experience itself, right? So that drink you can buy it from a store, or you make it yourself also. These classics are not as complicated, but it's the entire experience itself, the way it's made, the presentation, even the conversation that you have. That bartender can lift that experience to another notch, right? And I think there's sometimes when you go to a bar, you will remember that drink so much more than if that drink was had at another place where, which was a regular. So where has the shift happened? It's mostly the experience has changed at the bartender's level. And we've always been very, vocal about the fact that, we are all about a bartender's bar. We ourselves have bartended, and we know what it takes. And, we always propagate. And I would like to see, someday bartenders reach where chefs have reached, right? The celebrity, stardom that they've reached at. I would like to think that, someday bartenders can also reach that level of, celebrityhood and, recognition and stuff. Yeah.
In terms of non-alcoholic cocktails, is that a trend that you're seeing?
So low ABV, low alcoholic percentage cocktails have been trending for a bit, and I think it's a good trend to be. And people are actually. Why I think that's happening mostly is because people are not looking to get drunk so much and looking for more like experiences to go to the bar now. You don't go to a bar to get hammered. You actually go and, enjoy those 2-3 drinks and, enjoy that downtime. And I think people are appreciating that more and more. And you can see that as a trend almost. And I think that's a great trend, because I think that actually comes into the, better, you actually drinking better spirits, better quality spirits. So I think your taste and your experiences also evolve over time. And I think that's what is happening with low ABV cocktails, even non-alcoholic drinks for that matter. I mean, it's a great thing that there is an option out there. Otherwise you would end up like, sparkling water and lime. And I think, you just look like the odd one out in the middle of a group who's not drinking, and I think it's a great thing that, you can fit in and still feel the vibe. And I think it's a great thing, great option to have.
Yeah. What would you say is like India's relationship with alcohol like then? Because obviously at the start of the show you said that back in the day, if you drink whiskey, you're a bit of a gangster. But what's it like now then?
It's not been good in the sense that we've never viewed alcohol as in the positive spectrum of things. We are still the most heavily taxed product in India. We still have the most regulations. It's very, very tough to run a bar. Forget about opening the bar. We need like 15 to 20 licenses from different bodies. The amount of bureaucracy that exists is almost painful. And this is year on year. It's not like, you get a license in 1 year and then you continue. You have to do this every year. So you're almost knee deep into a lot of, I don't want to use the word crap, but excuse my French, but you are there. So in that sense, India has so far been very regressive. Having said that, I think the shift will happen eventually when they will realize that, I mean, there are lots of things which are happening in small pockets and small silos which are happening, which are actually getting some interest, where there's also a lot of employment that this industry generates. And I think it's time that the government and the authorities actually acknowledge that we are generating a lot of revenue, a lot of tax for them, and the fact that they are constantly, almost and every time, looking at you like as if you're a criminal or something, which is terrible, right? So I think it comes from the deep rooted the biases that we have, that if you are in the liquor industry, then you would be somebody who would be doing something wrong, or that whole mob and mafia vibe, right? Which is what India has always seen liquor as. And so we need to get out of that and go to modern retail. Now you can see there's modern retails happening now. Lot more women are drinking openly. Like a lot of bars, you see, like in our bars, we see a lot of women drinking, coming in just even one or two alone, also sitting at the bar counter drinking. That's such a refreshing. I mean, for you it might be very, very normal to see that, but for us in India, it's a refreshing sight. Literally, like the day I see a lot of women in the bar, I'm always very happy to see that, because it's in its way, it's a telling tale. Like, it's a sign that we are accepting this as a normal, and not constantly boxing it as something that we shouldn't be doing, or secretly doing, and not good for you. So how we've always seen and viewed it as. So yeah.
Yeah. So it was illegal for a woman to be a bartender then. Is that right? Yeah.
It is tough. It is very tough. In fact, I'm working on projects right now as we speak to actually. I mean, this is something, again, because of COVID and because of the time that I've had with myself, that we are working with organizations, trying to set up some kind of groups where we work better with getting more and more girls employed in the industry. We need to get them in at an entry level, and then from there on, of course, how they work, how they they want to become bartenders or not, and their career progresses their way. But it's about the fact that someone has to pave the way. So we are trying to do that, and trying to work on that, but it is not that easy. In hotels, it's still easier in the sense that they still have a certain infrastructure. They have a proper HR and admin, and dropping and pickups and all of that. But in a lot of freestanding restaurants and bars, it's tough for women to bartend as such, because it gets to late nights, and then it becomes about safety. How are they going to go home? There are certain laws which prohibit them to even work after 8 p.m. So it's crazy.
Yeah, sounds crazy to me. When you go to other bars, then are you checking out the competition, or are you just enjoying yourself, relaxing? Or
no,
do you switch off? Basically?
No. I think I'm a big supporter of. I believe in the fact that if you are in a good environment, in a positive environment, you will grow along with your own, with your environment as well. I don't believe in the I think it's always been like that. That I am very happy to see good bars, good restaurants, good passionate owners who know what they're doing. I want to personally also promote them, because that's what it takes, right? Like if my street has great 5 great bars, I can actually gain from that. If I'm the only good bar in my street, then people are only going to come for me. But if they're coming for 5 others, they might notice me as well, right? So it works like that. That's how the hubs work. That's how you go to Hong Kong, you go to Singapore, you go in there. They're like streets full of bars, and they're all doing fantastic. And it's a culture, right? It's not about just having one good bar in the middle of nowhere, right? It's about a culturally, coming out of the fact that people need lots of good bars and lots of good restaurants. That's how it'll the game will go up. That's how it'll get more interesting for everyone.
Yeah. Last few questions then. In terms of social media, then that must play a big part in helping you market the bars or brand the bars. What's worked and what hasn't worked in terms of strategies? We've
been learning. I think we've had our learning curve, and social media itself is like a wild animal, actually. So you one day stories work, and another day lives work, and the next day something else works. So as we are also learning, and I think the important thing for all of us as entrepreneurs and F&B entrepreneurs to learn is the fact that we sort of more clued in with what is happening in terms of the social media. So where Facebook is at, and where is Instagram at, and what is the next big thing that's coming up, or which are the kind of videos which are getting edited now, So it's about keeping yourself clued in and being there yourself, instead of leaving it on an agency or someone else. I think I've always believed in the fact that when you're personally involved with social media, your conversation is also an extension of your own brand and yourself, and I think that also shows a lot. So we've had our So I think we've been doing fairly well. When it comes to that, and it's a great tool for connecting with the community at large, with other bars, other bartenders. It's been fantastic. So that way, social media is great.
Yeah, that's good. If somebody wants to start their own bar and restaurant, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. Oh God, tough one. I would say that you should introspect on why you want to do it. I think ask yourself the right questions first. Is it because you have money? If that's your answer, then you shouldn't. If is it because you have a lot of free time, then you shouldn't. There are better ways to spend your free time and money in. I would say that you have to be really, really centered at the fact that if that is all you want to live and breathe and do in your life, and I think and that's what. If it's really, really clear to you in terms of the career or in terms of your life goal, then go for it. So have that conversation, think about it, mull over it. Don't jump into something as an opportunity, because these opportunities are also short windows and not necessarily open for all. So you have to keep that in mind. Of course, understand the business at a level where I think costing and their business plan makes a lot of sense. So keep going back at it. Speak to a lot of your peers. Speak to other people who are already doing it, or try to look for a mentor if you can, who can actually guide you and help you, who's done this before. And there are some great people out there who will give you that advice as well. So I mean, it's about doing that due diligence for yourself more than the outside world. I mean, you might think your product is something which is unique and which doesn't exist, but that shouldn't be the reason for you to go for it. You should be thinking about yourself, are you ready for this? It's like a massive commitment that you need to make, in every way. So, if you're happy to give up on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and your birthday and your child's birthday, then it's good, right? So that's where you need to ask yourself those hard questions.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend sort of buying an existing business, or would you recommend starting from scratch? I suppose there's probably pros and cons from each side of things.
Yeah, no. So it all depends on that's a very operational thing to do, because I mean you would know what your capital is or where you want to be focusing on. If you are buying into the business, you need to be sure on why you're buying it. Is it location? Is it something else? What is making you buy the space? A lot of time buying the space could actually become redundant, because sometimes you have to redo the whole place and then the cost comes back to the same amount. So you have to be 100% sure on So it depends on your business model mostly. So there's no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah. Who's helped you on your journey then?
Of course, my father's been a massive support about on all this. I was working as a corporate and I was doing fairly well, and I think I kept going back to him and saying, I want to do my own thing, and I think he was fantastic with the way he approached this whole thing, where. I would sit down with my mom, dad, and they would say that, just go ahead and do it. You're young and, you should do it. And, don't wait for, it's not a milestone that after marriage do business or whatever. So I was 28 when I started my first bar. And I think that's the interesting thing that, I didn't have. And then along the way, I met my partner, and he has been super supportive about it. So thankfully my in-laws have been super supportive about it. So it takes a village, right? So I think that over a period of time, nobody can say that I've done it on my own and that's it. So it's like I've had these wonderful, amazing people who have always been super supportive, and and I think that's where, and of course, work mentors, your office mentors and friends and family. I think everybody's been there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Looking back then, would you change anything?
No, not really. We've lots and lots of times thought about the fact that maybe we would change our location in Gurgaon and go to a little more high street location. But in retrospect, I think not, because I think everything happens for a reason, and I think it's just been fantastic. I mean, for the way it happened, for the lack of budgets, we actually went to a place which we couldn't afford, and I think it worked out wonderfully in the long run.
Excellent. Last question then, for people who want more information about you and the bars, what must they do?
They can follow us on Instagram, Sidecar India, or CND Speakeasy. They can just Google us, Sidecar India. It's a bar. We have our website up. We are there, or just Google us.
But why is it called Sidecar?
Oh, because Sidecar was the muse, the cocktail itself. The Sidecar as a cocktail was a muse to make the bar itself. So when you enter, it was all about the fact that we wanted to use that as the center of the inspiration, the name, the vibe, the music. It is a Prohibition era cocktail. It was invented in 1922, so it has a lot of European vibe instead of American. So so we went for that, and it's really simple and classic, and still it's an everlasting, beautiful cocktail. So I think it worked wonderfully from every sense of the way. Yeah,
I shall definitely have to try that one day. Minakshi, thank you for coming with the Indian Startup Show today. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Neil. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.
I'm glad we did this.
Awesome. That's the end of the show. Thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. And if you're building something exciting, please send me an email, hello@neilpatel.co, or you can tweet @IndianStartupSH, or you can go to facebook.com/Indian Startup Show. Love to connect. Thank you and goodbye.